Inside churches across Africa and beyond, women are being told that requesting a Caesarean section is a sign of a very weak faith. Pregnant women carrying lives, facing complications, being advised by doctors, are being pressured by their pastors, by church members, by doctrine to refuse medical intervention, be strong, and trust God to give birth like the Hebrew women. It sounds spiritual, it even sounds scriptural, but it is built on a lie, and many pregnant women have died because of this very lie. They died not because God failed them, but because someone took a lie that two midwives told a murderous king thousands of years ago. They lifted it completely out of context and built a theology on it. A theology that is still being preached, still being raised as a prayer point, and still being enforced in the name of faith in many churches today. Now, this video is not an attack on the church. This video is me opening the Bible with you right here, right now, and showing you exactly what that passage says, what it does not say, and why the difference matters more than most people realize. Today, we are going to open that passage, read it carefully, and settle this once and for all. Because if this video reaches even one pregnant woman before she's pressured into a dangerous decision, then it will have been worth making. If you are pregnant, share this video before you finish watching it. And if you know someone who is pregnant, send it to them now, because this lie has killed enough women and this must stop. Now to the first very important question: what does the Bible actually say? So let us go to the text. Exodus chapter 1. The children of Israel are in Egypt. They are slaves, and Pharaoh, threatened by their growing population, issues a horrifying decree. He says, kill every Hebrew male child at birth. He summons two midwives, Shiphrah and Puah, and gives them direct orders. When you attend to Hebrew women in labor, if the child is a boy, kill him. But verse 17 tells us what the midwives actually did instead. The scripture says, but the midwives feared God and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men children alive. They simply disobeyed Pharaoh. Why? Because they feared God. And that is the heroism in this story. Civil disobedience rooted in the fear of God. And that is what we should be celebrating in 2026. But then Pharaoh calls them to account. He wants to know why Hebrew boys are surviving and walking the streets. And here is the verse that has been catastrophically misread even up to 2026. Exodus chapter 1 verse 19. And the midwives said unto Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are lively, and are delivered ere the midwives coming unto them. That what ere means before the midwife comes unto them. The Hebrew women give birth before we even arrive. They told Pharaoh. That is why the boys are alive. Now, here is the critical question. Was that the truth? No, that was a lie. Now read the passage again carefully. The midwives were present at the births. That is their entire job. Pharaoh called them specifically because they were the ones attending to the deliveries. If the women were giving birth before the midwives arrived, the midwives would have no opportunity to kill anyone, and Pharaoh's plan would have been pointless from the start. So the text itself shows us that the midwives were actually there when the women were delivering. Verse 17 says, they saved the men children alive. You cannot save a child you were not present to attend to. So what did the midwives tell Pharaoh? They simply told Pharaoh a lie, a brave, God-honoring, life-saving lie, told to a murderous king to protect innocent children, but a lie nonetheless. And God honored them for it, not because he endorsed the lie specifically, but because their hearts feared him and their actions preserved life. verse 20 and 21. Scripture says, "Therefore God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and waxed very mighty. And it came to pass, because the midwives feared God, that he made them houses." God rewarded their fear of him and their preservation of life. That is the lesson in that passage. The big question then becomes, how did this become a doctrine? Somewhere along the line, the lie the midwives told Pharaoh was extracted from its context, taken at face value, and turned into a theological statement about Hebrew women and childbirth. If you are old enough, you must have heard the saying, "Hebrew women are lively and they give birth easily." They might have even raised it as a prayer point in your church, that you should pray to give birth like the Hebrew women. And from that single verse, spoken as a deceptive excuse to a pagan king, entire doctrines were built, prayer points were written, church policies were formed, and women were told that trusting God means refusing medical attention or intervention at childbirth. This is what happens when we read the Bible out of context, when we lift the verse out of its setting and build a belief on it without asking, who said this? To whom? And why was it said? The Bible records many things that it does not endorse. Pharaoh's decree in the Bible, Judas's betrayal in the Bible, the midwife's lie in the Bible. That these were recorded does not mean they were recommended. And that brings us to the big question, what does God actually value? Let us be clear about what this passage is truly about. The heroes of Exodus chapter 1 are Shiphrah and Puah, two women who looked a powerful king in the face and chose the lives of children over their own safety. Their courage is breathtaking. Their fear of God is exemplary. The lesson is not about how Hebrew women give birth. The lesson is about choosing God over human authority when the two of them come in conflict. Acts chapter 5 verse 29, for example, the apostle said, "We ought to obey God rather than men." That is the takeaway from the book of Exodus chapter 1. And when it comes to childbirth, the God who values life, who told us that children are a heritage from him, who needs every child in the womb, that same God has no interest in a woman risking her life or her baby's life to prove a point from a verse that was never making that point to begin with. Seeking medical help is not a lack of faith. It is wisdom, and God heals through medical doctors. And Proverbs chapter 11 verse 14 reminds us, "Where no counsel is, the people fall, but in the multitude of counselors there is safety." As I wrap up this conversation, if you are pregnant or someone you love is pregnant, please hear me clearly. Getting a Caesarean section is not a sin. It is not a failure of your faith. It is not being unlike the Hebrew women, because the Hebrew women in that story were not even doing what people claim they were doing. The Holy Bible was not teaching us a method of childbirth in Exodus chapter 1. It was showing us two courageous women who feared God more than they feared the king of their days. Honor that lesson, and please honor your life and the life of your child. If this video has been helpful, like this video, leave me a comment, let me know how valuable this video was to you, and share this video with somebody who needs to hear this. This is the kind of teaching that Bible study with Ajayi Olalekan is committed to. Reading the word carefully in context and letting the Bible speak for itself. Because a misread Bible is not a harmless thing. Words have consequences. Doctrines shape decisions. And we owe it to ourselves and our communities to get the scripture right. If this video helped you again, share it with somebody. It could save a life. You can also subscribe and turn on notifications so that you never miss a new lesson like this one. God bless you. I'll see you in the next one.